Thank you. It's my husband. I can do that. Well, that doesn't really work with your back pocket full. So good morning. My name is Stacie Tchividjian. That was my husband that was just up here. He is going to preach the weekend services this weekend here at Spring Hills. Fire! So you should come back this evening or tomorrow or all of the services because they'll probably vary a little. And he's just amazing. So we're here. We've been here all week. We're happy to be here back in Santa Rosa with some dear friends that we met before. It was 2016 when we were here before. We live in Fort Myers, Florida, so it was a trip. Let's see, when you're looking at it, it's from Florida to up here, so it's far. We went through my home state of Texas. Anybody from Texas? Go, girl! There's one in the house. I'm born and raised in Texas, the oldest of 4 kids. I have a large family, very dysfunctional relationally. I have generational curses that have cursed my bloodline tremendously. And so, being the oldest of all the kids and grandkids, I had a lot of unspoken pressure to, be the first girl in my family to make it out of high school, graduate without being pregnant, go to college. So even though I had a really great, loving childhood, there were a lot of unspoken performance that I was really trying to. I made the good grades. I made, I was an athlete, student athlete. Was going to go play basketball in college, but instead I found out I was pregnant with my oldest son right after high school. So instead I went to college and then started coaching basketball. So I've coached varsity basketball for over 16 years. I had an interior design firm, so I did something sweaty and something pretty. I don't really know how that worked out, but my life has been really interesting. I've had a lot of really amazing things happen in it, but typically when I would walk into a gym, which is in part of this mistaken identity piece, people would maybe mistake me for the cheer coach, which I've never been a cheerleader, but I feel like I am now to my husband, but and my children. But mistaken identity happens in all sorts of ways. We can be mistaken for good things, like a cheer coach. That's not necessarily a bad thing to be mistaken for. I can be mistaken for younger than my age. I often am. I think that runs in my family. That's one good thing they passed on, were good genes. I'm 45. My oldest son's 26. My youngest son is 19. I have 3 bonus children. My husband, Tullian, has 3 kids. So he has a 24-year-old son, a 22-year-old son, and a 17-year-old daughter. So the poor girl is at the end just bringing up the caboose, and she has these 4 brothers, that are looking out for her, from afar and close up constantly. So we have 2 grandchildren, 3, almost 4 now, and 7 months. So I'm a grandmother. So, those are good things, though. Those are good things when I tell you that, and you're like, oh, yay, that's good. It makes me think I've done something well to preserve myself. And that can become an idol just as much as if I'm called a whore or a slut or some other name that I've been labeled, which I have been. Tullian is my 3rd marriage. I was married at 20 the first time. I was married 11 years. That 11th year of that marriage, I cheated on my first husband. I was the woman caught in adultery, something I did not ever plan to do. I had planned to get married once, stay married forever, never cheat on my husband. I mean, there's no little girl that really dreams of, I'll be divorced at least twice, and then maybe by the 3rd time I'll get it right, and it'll be nice. No one plans for that kind of stuff. So that marriage ended. After 11 years, I married the man I had an affair with, and then he cheated on me and abandoned me. So at 37 years old, I was completely single for the first time as an adult, which is a terrible thing. So anybody who's single and an adult, I don't care if you've been married or not, I feel for you. Like, it's hard to be single in today's world. It's pretty crappy. So the pool is small to choose from, especially if you have any kind of standard whatsoever. So, girl, just call me. So, just being 37, single, having a ton of recovery to do emotionally, relationally, personally, in every way. I'm a huge believer in Celebrate Recovery and just any kind of recovery program. Power to the recovery. We're all in recovery, whether we know it or not, from something. There's not a single person, child, adult, I don't care how young you are, how old you are, you have something to recover from. And so I came to believe at 37 to understand how important recovery is, to recover from life hurts, to recover in ways that I didn't even know I needed recovery for, why I had, had these habits, and why I looked at relationships the way I did. So at 37, starting to go through recovery in a way that I'd never been was daunting, exhausting, excruciating, but it was completely worth it. It was the gift of desperation in those moments that God gave me graciously to show me more about himself, make me more self-aware, which is so incredibly important, especially as a woman, because we are so inundated with the world and what it tells us, who we are, and our awareness becomes something that is completely superficial and based on someone or something that does not know us. Whether it's marketing, your family even, your kids, all of these things that once we really figure out who I am and who I am in light of Christ, is like a totally different person that I grew up with the first 37 years of my life. So I was single for 4 years, and I met Tullian, my husband, my third husband. And at that point in my life, I had kind of, I'd been single for 4 years. I'd kind of cleaned myself up to me, I kind of shucked a lot of my Gomer labels. For anybody, we're going to talk about the story of Hosea and Gomer in a minute. But all those labels that I faulty wife, adulterer, cheater, serial marrier, all these words and labels that get attached to us, no matter, even if you haven't been divorced, even if you haven't cheated, even if, there are other labels that you wear, and we spend time trying to just get to a place where we don't hear those and we don't see those and we don't wear those around. We feel like we're wearing the white robe of white righteousness that we really are. And so it took me a long time to even get remotely close to that. And then I met Tullian, and when I met him, it was on the heels of his own story of infidelity. And so it looked really scary because I was like, oh, I just got really clean, and this looks really scary. And our relationship started, we started as pen pals, and then we started a friendship, and then that grew into a romance, and now we're married. But that all started, even though he was separated from his former wife, his first wife, his divorce wasn't legally finalized. So all of the speculation, all of the assumptions, all of those labels that I worked so hard to just get out from under, it just was like, whew, here they came back again. And, part of me dealt with that differently than maybe I would have before, but part of me didn't. It never is easy. It's never easy for people that don't know you, don't know the details of the story, for, however they're going to see it and whatever they're going to say. It's difficult to hear negative things. It's difficult to stand in the town square and have people throw rocks at your face. I don't care who you are. There's nobody that's immune to that. So that is leading me into my story of Hosea and Gomer. The book of Hosea, to me, is quite poetic, and I think it's one to just study because it tells us who we are individually and collectively as the church in light of Christ and to God. Like, he is so incredibly faithful. It is a faithfulness we cannot imagine. We are incapable of understanding the depths of his faithfulness. But in the story of Hosea and Gomer, Hosea, is a prophet, and he's told to go out and marry a woman of whoredom. I mean, if one of my sons said, "Mom, God told me to go and marry a woman of whoredom," I'm like, well, let's think about it. Let's pray about it. Let's see what I hear from God. So he is told to go out and marry this woman, which he does, and he's told that she's going to be unfaithful over and over and over. God gives him no end to her unfaithfulness. And they get married, they have 3 kids. Even their kids' names are terrible. I'm like, this is a terrible story. Oh my God, what is going on? But as the story unfolds and we read, Hosea is just, God says, go after her, go after her, go after her, go after her. And she's just constantly running and leaving and betraying and being unfaithful. And, every single day, I can't imagine. I've been cheated on, but I can't imagine being cheated on as much as Hosea is cheated on in this story. And literally going to the bed that she's in of another and buying her back. Like, this is what he does. This is what God tells him to go and do. That is the kind of love he's trying to show him. Like, this is how I want you to love this woman, this unfaithful harlot of a woman. And so we see Hosea go back and back and back and back. And if you have a heart, it aches for him. And you've been in that position. You've been in the position where someone's been unfaithful to you, even if it's not a spouse or a boyfriend or a girlfriend, a romantic relationship. It's even your kids. When you're like, I've told them over and over and over, I've given them the freedom, I've given them the answer, and again and again and again, I keep finding my daughter there, I keep finding my son there. They just run, they run. And it's hard. It's a hard place to find peace in. But that is when it lands on us the softest, if we understand where peace really comes from in those kinds of situations. So, I don't know how Hosea was, like his relationship with God personally. There is enough there, but I only have a peace in certain situations that are completely chaotic and toxic and terrible because of what God is saying. It's like, that is going to happen. So just expect it, and I got this. Like, I got it. So we just read, the story of Gomer and how she's just running, and Hosea just goes, back to him, which I'm just like, oh, gosh. So I wanted to read this in Confessions of an Unfaithful Spouse, that particular article that I wrote. It's kind of down, I don't know where it will be, but part of what I said to begin with is I wanted to uphold, the 10 Commandments. I grew up in the church, and one of the ones we spoke about at the beginning is I didn't want to break the 7th commandment. I didn't want to commit adultery, but I did. And I thought that I did in my first marriage, and that was the first time I was an adulterer, which it was physically in that particular way, but the 7th commandment is much deeper than just don't cheat on your spouse. That's not the depth it goes. The bar is way higher. The law is be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. So, Jesus says in the Sermon on the Mount, even if you've lusted in your heart for a second, you've already committed this crime. Like, why are you pointing at people, dragging people out of their beds? You've already done this. So in light of that, I used to be a rule keeper in a very different way, and because I thought the rules were different. I thought the limit of the rule was different. So what I found, I'm going to read part of this, but there isn't anything I could ever do, and no amount of enough I can ever be to keep from earning the unwanted badges of unfaithfulness that God's law justly delivers to me. I now realized that I had broken the seventh commandment and all the rest of the commandments in my thoughts, words, and deeds long before I ever cheated on my first husband. It turns out that I was completely ignorant to the fact that God requires us to be flawlessly faithful, sinlessly selfless, and perfectly loving on the outside and the inside all the time. All the time. Not when you feel like it, not when it's easy. There's no wiggle room in that statement for failure in any way for any of us at all. None. In light of that, I realized the only thing I was capable of, and am still capable of today, is whoring around on my one true love along with the rest of humanity, just like the book of Hosea explains. God is trying to tell us in Hosea that we are all Gomer. His church collectively has treated his law just like Gomer treated her covenant of marriage. You know, there's none of us. So Gomer, that's me. I understand apart from Christ, I am Gomer. No matter how much I want to escape that namesake, I've cheated on God more times and in more ways than I can conceive in the most shameful, trust-trashing, relationship-obliterating, prideful ways. I've searched the world over and the internet for someone better than him, constantly, consciously and unconsciously. I've lied to him and myself countless times about where I was going and who I was meeting and how far it had gone. You know, our idols are not just, things like money and fame and power and those easily labeled things that we know are idols in our society today. Our heart is an idol-making machine. It is, even as saved Christians, our hearts are still wicked. We are still sinful, and we still put things in God's place every day. We break our covenant with him every day. Every day. In some way, I daily trade the unmatched treasures of his trustworthy affections and never-ending care for complete and utter crap. And I've religiously, ungratefully treated his ultimate sacrifice as if I deserve every drop of it. When I think I'm doing good enough, when I think I've pulled it off enough, I've checked enough boxes for the day, I unconsciously, I'm like, yeah, Jesus died for me. Why wouldn't he? Well, that's so ignorant. Like, it brings his sacrifice down to almost meaning nothing. And in my completely failed attempt to keep his law, it takes that up here, like it's better, like it's really good enough. No matter how well I behave, how much time I spend cleaning up my life, how far I get from the first and second divorce, from the rumors and the gossip and the truth, I am a rotten sinner in desperate need of a risen Savior. Even my best good deeds and deeds merit no mercy, are no grounds for grace, and provide no foundation for forgiveness. I'm in a constant state of needing and receiving completely undeserved, scandalous grace. My perceived faithfulness does not fool God, neither does yours. He isn't tricked by our attempts to earn our way in or present grand facades of good enough character. And let me remind myself and you that the only thing we bring to the equation of our salvation is the sin that makes Jesus necessary. Nothing that we're doing is helping us be saved. Jesus did it. He said, "It is finished." Not, "I did my part, now go do yours." It's partially done. So, ipso facto, the rest is on you. It's not. What we deem as good enough simply isn't and never will be. All sin and all sinners require the same amount of blood. That's why there is only one to take care of all of it. He knows all the ugly truth about each of us, and yet still he takes us back every time we run to another's arms. He doesn't just accept us after we've stopped our sordid affairs momentarily and cleaned up ourselves time and time again like Gomer. When we think, okay, I'm not going to overeat. And so I've been on a keto diet for a week. That keto chocolate back there. You ladies. And so you clean yourself up and you're like, see, now I'm being good. I'm like, I've worked that part of my sin out. So that is a bed. That is a casual affair with a sin. So when we look at those things like they are less than some other sin, horizontally they may be. My consequences for, eating chocolate's much different than cheating on my husband, okay, horizontally. But my overeating and my gluttonous attitude and my adultery in God's eyes are the same. Sin is sin to him. There is no gradation of sin. And he has one answer for all of it, and it's Jesus. It's not my cleaned upness, although I want to be cleaner horizontally. I want life to be easier and freer horizontally. I want to do things that make relationships healthy and easier. And by attempting to do the things that he put in his law, those things do help us. We can't control other people, and we can't control nature, we can't control life. But those things, if we're understanding our position in Christ and how that helps us to love our neighbors, that is all we can do. That's all we can do, because Jesus has done the rest. And come quick. Because this is not going to last very long. I can't hold it together very long. Other people can't hold it together very long. So he goes further than just taking us back every time. We're not going into the living room confessing and saying what we've done. Sometimes we don't even know that we need confessing, that we need to confess the things that we're doing. Sometimes we're not even aware, we are unconscious that they're even sin. So I like to think about how God goes further. He passionately and faithfully goes all the way to a place we don't even realize he goes for us. While we are still naked and in the bed of our lesser loves, the idols of our affections, embracing all that is wrong and rejecting all that is true, he eagerly climbs in every single time. And he says, I love you. I want you. I accept you. I forgive you. Come home, my beloved. Every single time. He comes after us every single time. He'll never forsake us. Never. So just as he commanded Hosea to go buy back his adulterous wife, so too did God buy us back at the highest price. He could have rightly divorced us, but chooses not to day after day. He sees us as we are. He sees behind every mask and under every costume we put on. He sees every detail of our sinful nature and every breath we take. Freedom is found in accepting the truth that he knows how unlovable we are, yet forgives us and loves us unconditionally. I know how unlovable I am. I know everything that I've done. I know everything I've thought. I know those things. I know those things in my heart that he comes after to free me from. That he loves me despite those things. That's something I cannot comprehend to the degree that I wish I could. And he knows that. I think if we really did understand it to the degree that it is, our minds would be so literally blown. We would not be able to handle it. It is unconditional, which is something we do not understand. We say we do. I love you unconditionally, Michelle. I guarantee you there's some conditions somewhere along the line that we're not going to love each other. At least not act like it, but I can't imagine. But the good news is we can't remove what God has covered us with. No matter how far we run, how often we betray him, or how short we fall in keeping his perfect law, we can't remove the thick, red, soul-cleansing, sin-removing blood of Jesus that paid the debt for all of our sins. No matter how unfaithful we believe we are to others and to God, the truth is we all fall short. We shatter promises, we fail at faithfulness, we disturb dependability, we sever the sacred, and completely wreck relationships. The good news is that because of what Jesus has done on our behalf, our total betrayal is forever forgiven because of his complete and perfect faithfulness. Nothing can separate us from this unfair, scandalous truth. Instead of leaving all of us Gomers draped shamefully in our coats made from every fiber of unfaithfulness imaginable, he substitutes those unsightly rags with his own personal, stainless, sinless, snow-white robe of righteousness made from threads of perfect faithfulness. He reunites us to him not because of us, but in spite of us. We are all Gomer, and he is our perfect Hosea. So the reason I don't hide my ugly, those parts of my life resume that I'm tempted to hide, because they are shameful facts that I hate admitting. The reason I don't hide my ugly is because the gospel frees me to tell the truth about myself because of all the acceptance, all of the love, all of the validation I crave and need, I already have in Jesus. I don't need you to give it to me. I may want it humanly. I may want every woman in this room to go, you did a great job. But if you don't, what I know is that I've told you what I know about Jesus. And I know that I have his approval and his affection and his love. And he's not going to reject me. So if you do, I lose nothing. Neither do you. You have that same freedom. Being reminded of that life-giving truth every day is what gives me the freedom to tell the worst truths about myself. And I can relate to women in all areas of their life because my life has been riddled with crazy stuff, my family history, my own road. And so God speaks through those places of our Gomerness, our wounds. He is the wounded healer. For him to love me through his wounds teaches me to love others in theirs and through mine. Hiding my scars, hiding who I am, hiding those places of me that have been hurt are the resource that's most untapped. Our scars should be stewarded. You know, we hear a lot about steward your money, your talents, your whatever you have, you know, in churches especially. Everybody's always telling you, do you sing? Do you work with children? What do you do? You should steward those things, and you should. Those are good gifts that you can give to your church. But one of the most untapped resources are the scars that people bear. Telling people where you've been hurt and how God has healed you is life-giving to someone who is just now stepping into that wound. When you can speak from your scar and not from your wound, you can share that with someone that breathes life into them in a time where the world around them feels like death. So that's really all I got. For now. I just wanted to encourage you to, think about how God has come after you, pursued you faithfully. Like he really is this amazing, he loves the church. He loves us collectively, and he loves us individually. And the way he pursues us and his patience with us is ridiculous. I mean, we're idiots. I mean, you look at any kind of relationship and you're like, he is a fool for cheating on that girl. Or she's completely stupid. That man is a good man. I can't believe she cheated on him. But we do that every day to Jesus. Like we have this lover of our soul. Like how in the world are we betraying him? You know? The freedom that he gives us in that love is unbelievable. And I pray that you would all live in that and learn more about yourself so that you find that freedom in him in a way that you never have before. And you can be bold. You know, when I write things like this and talk to certain women in smaller groups, and they're like, how in the world did you get to a place you could write that about yourself? And I'm like, at first I was thinking, well, everybody in my family just talks about it, so it's not a big deal. Everybody's ugly is out there, you know, but to write it and let people that don't know me read it, I realize why people don't want to share their ugly, because they get attacked. And it's scary because it could possibly open up those places in you that hurt, that are scary, that you don't want to go to again. You don't want to, and that kind of tells you if it's a wound or a scar still. I can speak from my scars because they're old and tough by now. So, you know, rocks come and rocks go, whatever. But that's all I have. And so if you want to, I'll open it up to Q&A if you want to do any Q&A, or, you know, we can sing Reckless Love again because that's like basically the whole thing. Yes, ma'am. Good question. Much experience with that. Um, First of all, if somebody in my circle is doing that, they're not in my circle. You out. Um, but, I mean, sin shouldn't shock Christians. So even the sin of someone attacking me shouldn't be shocking. What are you doing? Oh, okay. He's looking for a microphone. So first of all, most often, no response is the best response. That's my first rule of thumb, isn't it, Michelle? Okay. So usually, and Tully and I both have to use this rule often, no response is the best response. The way I live my life, the way we live our life as a couple, the truth is the truth. So it speaks volumes no matter if it's believable to people or not. How I live my life is just the truth. And so it will speak louder than, attackers if they're attacking me directly, which actually I could probably count on one hand. Like that never actually happens. It's usually, in a circumference, like not to my face, which tells you something else. Because if I'm really having an issue with Emily, I should be able to go straight to her and say, I have a problem with something, or I'm confused, whatever. Like we should, as Christians, be able to go speak face to face. That is what we're told to do. Go. If it doesn't work, go get somebody else and go with you and go do it, right? I mean, that's part of it, but we don't exercise that. So, but it's hard when it's Christians. I think it's not harder, but it's sadder. Because that is why people don't want to go to church. That's why people go, I don't want to be Christians. Look what they do. They eat their own. I mean, like, why do I need to be a Christian? So I can get beat over the head about every single thing that somebody doesn't like about me? I mean, so it's sad to me. But most often, it's no answer is the best answer. No response is the best response. And just life, living your life is the best answer. God He works with the truth. So the truth always comes out. It always comes out. And I trust Him with it. Like, I trust Him to be the defender that He is without me opening my mouth. Jesus over and over and over and over and over again being attacked by Christians. They might have been Pharisees, but they were Christians. Okay, they weren't Christians. But He was attacked over and over, and it always says, and He said nothing. He responded not. Like He didn't respond. He knew His Father, the way He lived His life, and His Father would answer for Him. And so I think that's the best practice. Anybody else?
On that same note, you and your husband are from a very famous family.
He is. I'm from a very infamous family. My grandmother's been married and divorced the legal limit in Texas, so you probably know her. But
Let's just say that Billy Graham was probably the biggest, most famous.
I agree. Yeah.
And on the same note, do you find it just irritating that fellow Christians like look at you and go, whoa? Especially I listen to him and my family just loves him and what you've been through. Do the Christians like look at you and think, oh, no?
Yeah, like he went down. Right. Like he went and like dug in the trash for that one.
Yeah.
Right.
Is it the same thing? Just like,
Yeah.
you're on.
Yeah. We don't hear that much. I mean, Tullian reads online way more than I do. And so I don't read I haven't heard a lot of stuff like that. I have wrestled with myself thinking that kind of stuff. Because I grew up in Texas, so Billy Graham was like the Pope of Texas. I mean, like, I thought he was the governor for first 25 years of my life or something, So I grew up. I mean, he was the first person, even though I grew up in church, all I could remember was him saying, God loves you. God loves you, over and over and over. That's what I would hear him say. And so when, and my mom I mean, my whole family is Christian, but, so everybody knows who Billy Graham is. And so when, like, they found out we were dating, of course, my mom's like, what? Billy Graham? It's Billy Graham's grandson. And they are honored because they loved Tullian's grandfather. And when I met him, it was like meeting Moses. I mean, I really felt like... No, not him. Billy Graham. When I met him, I didn't think about Moses. Oh, yeah. His family has been very accepting, and because they have their own dynamics in their family, I mean, Tullian being one of them, that, I mean, no family is immune to that kind of stuff. So, not even the Grahams, So they have all been so graciously accepting and just very loving, and I connect with different ones in different ways, and I'm sure a lot of people are like, he dug in the bottom of the barrel, but I could say something bad right now, but I felt it was intimidating. It's intimidating because not only Billy Graham and his fame here, Tullian has his own, and so both combined is like, okay. But I think when you're in it, it doesn't feel like that. It is intimidating, but God just, you just put one foot in front of the other. Isn't that like, was that on a Christmas, just one foot in front of the other, that snowman, Frosty Snowman or something? So, or like, Nemo and Dory just keep swimming. So, yeah. But I think that, it's probably more from internally than externally, but it's all good. It's an honor. It's an honor. When we go anywhere, people are so incredibly honoring to his grandfather. As we've traveled, people have been incredibly honoring to my husband, which makes my heart sing. So he's pretty fun to listen to. He's pretty smart. And I was introduced to him years before I met him. My mom was like, "You got to hear this preacher. He's so good. You got to hear this preacher." And I bought his books. We're going to read it together. And I was like, okay. And so then I listened, and I was like, wow, that is all so profound. It just filled all these theological holes that had just been kind of sitting there just starving, like for several years. Because I don't remember a day I didn't believe Jesus is who Jesus is. But that doesn't mean that my faith and my understanding of the gospel didn't lack severely and was starving. And so when I started reading Tullian's books, I was like, this guy gets it. Like, he is, like, gifted. Like, it's up here and it's coming straight at me. And it just filled all of these places that I could understand things that I just was striving. Like, why isn't that working? Why isn't that working? Why can't I pull off the 10 Commandments? Like, why can't I, so being his wife has increased my faith in ways that are spiritual and just, God has used all of it, like, to build this great foundation. All my life, the journey of it, being married to him and us doing what we do together makes all of that ugly. If I had to do and go through all that ugly again to get where we are right now today, I would do that. It's worth it because God has such a great plan for each of us, and he uses all of those steps along the way that we deem completely unusable, but he uses them. He takes ashes and he makes them beautiful. So I don't know. We have we travel every weekend, so I don't get to be routinely. But at a church in San Antonio, it was a very large group of hundreds of people in CR, and that was my introduction to it. It was actually during my second marriage that I became introduced to it, and Celebrate Recovery. So it takes like the 12 steps. I've never had a substance abuse problem. But I believe in the 12 steps because those coupled with the gospel, to me, I'm like, people, we need this. Live your life by them, okay? Like, let's get it together. Let's all do this. But Celebrate Recovery, I have not been involved in since 2011, like as much as I was. I was facilitating groups of women, which was the highest honor to like walk with women through that, you know, because it's pretty long, 10, 11 months, but anyway. Yes, ma'am. I would probably look to a local ministry, like that may, you know, my mom, she had me when she was 15, so she recently has found this place near her in Texas that's called like Heaven's Army or something like that, but it's a ministry that like caters to teenage pregnancies, and my mom has not ever really used that part of her life as a ministry, and I've been, you know, I mean, she's now to the point where she's like, I realize that I'm useful, and I'm like, yeah, you know. So she's like going, you know. But I would just say I would encourage you to find something local that, you know, or national that you could have a local chapter that is specific to what you have. You know, if you've had an abortion and you can go minister to women that are maybe going through that, or teenage girls, or, you know, pregnancies, or drugs, or whatever it is. I mean, it can be anything. There's ministries for everything. You know, the answer is the same, but there's ministries. I would look locally. Google. Siri. I don't know. I don't think she's that smart, so whatever. Oh, we're good? Okay. They're doing this, so we're done. So, but love you guys. Love you women for being here.